The year is 1970. You're living in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and a local snowmobile competition needs more snow. Luckily, you work at the local radio broadcast station, and you have the ability to make a difference. So you make up a song to a god that never existed before, where you sing for more snow to come. And even though you completely made this god up and named him Heikki Lunta, for some reason the snow came. So much snow, in fact, that you believe that you actually prayed to a god and created a snowstorm. So much so that you actually create another song telling that very god you just called to go away. And thus the legend of Heikki Lunta was born. And this is the legend as I know it, the legend of Heikki or Heikki Lunta, this Finnish-American god that was made up in 1970 in order to literally just make it snow during a snowmobile competition. But this local legend became, more of a legend, and the Heikki Lunta Festival was born. And so that's one of the reasons I'm actually up here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in the snowy winter to actually witness this festival and see what it's all about. But also to kind of answer this question of, can you just make up gods? Because it is a really interesting question. Like, is that a thing? Because at some point, all gods were made up, right? At some point, someone said Odin's name for the first time. At some point in history, someone said, Uller or Skadi for the first time. So where does that line stop and begin? So those are the questions we're going to be asking ourselves today, asking myself today, as we explore Heikki Lunta and this question of whether or not we can just make up gods. Okay, so here's me reporting at the festival. What has it been like so far? Has it been like the festivals in Europe? No. But it's been interesting. I ended up talking to some people where I got coffee because they had a giant poster of like a painting of Heikki Lunta outside. And they actually had tarot readings there as well. So when talking to them, they basically said like, oh yeah, no, it's just a way to celebrate winter, get everyone outside and drink and stay warm. So I think that's cool because I think one of my main points for this overall is that, during this time of year in the ancient past, today, you get isolated, you get stuck in. So having some kind of festival to look forward to get out of the house, to get people excited about life, I think is good for mental health as well as spiritual health. And so it doesn't seem so far from what I've seen that Heikki Lunta is actually like something that people think about as a god, but the festival itself represents the spirit of winter overall. So that's my first thoughts while drinking this pretty delicious coffee. So thank you to the people at the coffee shop. If you ever end up watching this, it seems like they really appreciate this festival. And I think that goes a long way in itself. Appreciating life, I think, is one of the core things of why a lot of people get into spirituality. So even if it doesn't necessarily have a pagan spirituality coating on top, I think it's still important. So one of the things I am liking, the more we've moved away from the festival, there's actually a lot of paintings on the windows of figures of Heikki Lunta. And that's really cool. And then they have these little bonfires, like these little campfires spread throughout the city. So that's really cool. I think it's interesting. I've not actually seen that before. I don't know if that's very common during winter festivals, but I mean, this street's not very big. And they probably have 4 or 5 fires on the main street there. And so, yeah, I kind of I'm feeling it a little bit. Undeniably, I was a little disappointed when all the bonfire was a guy just lighting it. There was nothing around it. And so far, there's definitely nothing that calls to any form of spirituality. But as far as general, just celebrating winter, feeling cozy with your community, and just getting excited about something in a place that honestly gets obliterated by snow. This is a very light winter for them so far. So normally this festival takes place when they have, 6 feet of snow. And so I think this kind of thing is really healthy for a community, and that's very important. So Before we continue this conversation and discussion, I do want to say if you're enjoying this video, I know it's a little bit different, but that's ultimately what I want to do in this channel, is make videos that are a little different than the standard everyday pagan content of just sitting in an office, reading a book to you, reading some old passage from, the Havamal or something. I wanted to create content capturing the essence of spirituality today as it still survives and is evolving. So if you appreciate the content here, make sure you like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And if you really want to support the content here, I do have a Patreon down below, as well as YouTube members, and then I have a book as well that I wrote that all go to supporting this channel and my mission in collecting all this strange information from around the world to provide more informed videos on paganism as it's surviving and evolving today. So with that, if I have any final thoughts on Heike Lunta or Heike Lunta, I heard both sayings in the festival itself, in case anyone was wondering. The only other thing I'll add here is that the thing that attracted me to this is my recent trip to Finland, and understanding that the birth of Heike Lunta is also from the Finnish-American migration here, particularly to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, that has created a lot of different Finnish customs and celebrations. And so Heike Lunta is actually a Finnish name, I think, for Hank Snow or Hank Frost. And this name is, actually so well known. It was actually even in a video game about like historic paganism in Finland. So, I mean, Heike Lunta is a made-up god from the 1970s, but it's still a part of the Finnish-American story. So it's really interesting. And let me know your thoughts down below. Like, is this something we should just do or can do in our modern era of exploring paganism and alternative spiritualities, particularly when it comes to connecting to the ancient past? Like, can we just make them up? And I think yes and no. I definitely think that we have to be careful in this because, I always think about people asking me the question of, like, can you, like, give offerings to the gods in Minecraft? I've been asked these questions before. I look at people following gods from video games, like completely made up gods, or people that, follow like the Jedi religion. That's a thing. People actually follow the Jedi religion. And it's a careful balance between roleplay and LARPing versus actual spirituality. In the case of the Jedi, since I already brought it up, it's really just a mixture of Taoism and Buddhism wrapped into the Star Wars universe. So there's going to be a layer of like LARPing on top of it, but what it does for people in the mindset is very similar to Taoism and Buddhism. So is it wrong? Again, add your thoughts down below. I'm not necessarily going to say yes or no to that one, but in the case of Heike Lunta, looking into it as a pagan perspective, I think it's a good thing because, these Finnish Americans, descendant of three or four generations, because most of the Finnish Americans came over in the mid to late 1800s. So these people are only a couple of generations removed from their Finnish roots. And so they don't necessarily know their gods possibly here, but they still have that calling inside to celebrate this time of year. Clearly the Finns moved from a cold, snowy place to another cold, snowy place with very limited sun. So clearly they love the winter, and clearly were longing for something to connect them on a deeper level to winter and to call back to possibly something in their ancestral roots. Heike Lunta I don't think is a god running around in the skies or, throwing snow everywhere, but it's the personification of winter, and they're just naming winter and worshiping it and celebrating it in its own way. And I think particularly in America, we get this mindset that paganism was this very dramatic thing in the ancient past, and perhaps it was at times. But a lot of the pagan traditions survive today in the small festivals across Europe, and they're not very dramatic. Some of them are, like a Krampusnacht or something like that. But a lot of these smaller festivals you would actually not recognize as pagan, and many of the people that still attend these festivals and participate in these festivals don't think they're pagan, much like the Beltane Festival in Edinburgh that I went to. I would say less than 50% of people there see it as a pagan thing, more as just a cultural thing. And so even though the people in Edinburgh are, celebrating something with a historical name, the people here in the small town in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, are doing relatively the same thing. They are personifying winter and putting together winter themes, winter sports, fire and warmth, drinking and food, and putting these things together with community around the name of a god of winter. Maybe I'm stretching this here. Maybe you don't believe me. Maybe you're like, no, this is completely made up nonsense. Like I said in the video, I talked to some locals there, And they kind of said, yes, it's a spiritual thing, you know, less so about Heike Lunta and more so about the coming together of community. And that's one of my main arguments on this channel, is that paganism at its core is about community and coming together with your tribe and celebrating the seasonal changes. And so by that definition, what people are doing here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, while yes is around a god that was made up in the 1970s, is still honoring the core values of what paganism and pagan celebrations are. Now, of course, I do wish that they would throw in more elements into this. I wish they would have a little bit more ceremony around the lighting of the bonfire. And I think they would even be open to it. You know, if someone came up to them and they said, hey, you know, why don't you do like, there's a song. There's literally the Heike Lunta song. Why don't you sing the song before you light the fire? I think that would be really cool. And it would add more to the festival and add a little bit more spirituality and culture to it as well. So again, let me know your thoughts down below. I know this isn't a very long video. You know, I clearly struggled realizing this festival was much smaller than I expected, but I still enjoyed this question and this conversation. So let me know your thoughts down below. Can we just make up gods? Is that something we should do? Is it healthy? What you thought of, you know, my thoughts on this festival. So thank you so much for joining me for this small video and a small look into a culture that you probably didn't know about here up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I know it's not a place I ever expected to be, but it is very beautiful. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video here, The Wisdom of Odin.